Hey folks, my name's Chris Wessel. Today we're going to be tying a Buck Tail Deceiver. These patterns are amazing for any kind of predatory species that feed on smaller fish. So without further ado, let's get on into it. Alright, to start our Buck Tail Deceiver today, we're going to be using a wide gate Predator X hook from Partridge. And we're going to be tying in a 2-aught. It's a little bit of a larger hook, but that's more to aid the visual of the tying. Today we're going to be using Danville's in a white. Just a little bit of a stronger thread without, I like it, it doesn't really create a lot of bulk. And we're basically just going to come on back here, just past the hook point, but not over the bend. So this is a bucktail deceiver, sorry, and of course you would need to use bucktail for this. We're going to start off with the white today in the tail, and we're going to pick it from back towards the base and tend to be a bit more hollower fibers back there. And we're going to want to go back maybe 3.5 inches, but actually we're not going to stack this part because we want a bit of a taper here. That's a good length there. So I'm just going to cut off that extra stuff. And we're going to tie that part in with a few wraps. And we're just going to push this around just so we get a good coverage around the shank of our hook. And then a few more wraps just to tighten it up. You can have a look at it. It looks good. Now we are going to, I'm going to use a little bit of Gorilla Glue today. And I'm just going to use this throughout this fly. And the nature of these patterns and the species that you're targeting with them, it never hurts to kind of just reinforce everything you're tying in, because usually whatever you're fishing with these has teeth and sharp ones. Alright, we're going to come up a little bit further there now, and we're going to go with a little more white. Again, I'm going to take some longer, straighter fibers there from near the base of the bucktail. And this one I am going to just kind of straighten up a little bit. So what I'm doing here is I just take the very tip while holding the base, and I'm pulling out any fibers, laying them down. And I do the same here, and it's always leaving shorter fibers behind, but I'm pulling out the longer ones, and I'm basically just lining those up on the table in front of me. And you don't want to have these like hair stackers straight, but I like to keep them all roughly around the same. And you're going to come back almost all full length of that tail. Cutting off that extra again, and as the same we did before, we'll just do a few wraps, kind of squish that hair down around the shank, and just do a few more wraps. Now we're not going to bother tying that in right yet because we're going to do some on the bottom below too. So our bottom section is going to be a little bit shorter this time, and really this white bucktail that I have right now is pretty consistent throughout, so I don't really need to pick around. And I'm just going to take out some of those fibers again like I was doing before, and I'm straightening those up on the desk a bit. And I could just pull those out, I don't need those. So as mentioned, this one's going to be a little bit of a shorter edition, right about there. give that a few wraps again. Kind of sort those fibers out around. You want a nice little even distribution of them. And I'm just pulling those up. You want to constantly be looking at it and just seeing the shape that it's taking on. You don't want it getting out of hand. You may need to adjust by putting on maybe a little bit less each time of the clumps of deer bucktail you're using, or maybe even more. So I'm just putting on a little bit more Gorilla Glue here. And we're just going to tie that in. Now we're going to go with a little bit of flash, and I have some really nice like angel hair flash here. When I was practicing tying this fly, I was using some Flashaboo, and oops, I was using some Flashaboo, and I like Flashaboo, but I really do like angel hair. So I'm just kind of, nice thing about Flashaboo is that if you feel like the flash is throwing the fish off, it's pretty easy to just kind of peel out, cut out. This thinner stuff is a little bit harder to get your hands on when you're out on a water body fishing. But I feel like it blends in really nice. And I'm just using a dubbing brush there just to kind of get that stuff to blend in with the bucktail a bit. Alright, now we're going to go with a different color, and we're going to gradually go up in like shades with our color. So it's kind of cool like to know what colors look kind of good with other colors. Like you don't want to put in a yellow, then like, you know, fluorescent geez, I can't even think of, or maybe even a black and then another color. Like it just doesn't really look that natural. So we're gonna go yellow, then chartreuse, which would be a natural progression in colors, I think. So kind of preparing to tie these, I had to do a lot of research. Actually purchased Bob Popovich's book on tying them, and read through that. And I also watched, there's a gentleman on YouTube that I really like his instructions. It's Paul Monaghan, and he's out of Europe, I believe. Alright, so we want to kind of measure that up right about there, I think. And again, like others, we just kind of put that on top, and then we use our finger to kind of squish that down around the shank. So you're getting some good coverage on the sides too. Yeah, that's not bad at all. And we're going to come underneath, and we're going to do some more white. I know the anglers down south of us here, I'm in Newfoundland and Labrador, but there's a lot of anglers south of us down in Nova Scotia that really use a lot of these bucktail patterns for striped bass. They work well with pike, and basically it's anything that's eating something smaller. Smaller fish, I should say. Yeah, that'll work good there. And again, just kind of moving that around a bit. And again, we're just having a look at how our body shape is going so far. Perfect. We're going to put a little bit of glue on there. Try to protect it from the teeth. Alright. So I'm going to come back in over this yellow with my thread where we already tied in, because I'm just kind of noticing I may need a little bit more room near the end. So we have chartreuse, or like a lime green here for bucktail. And we're just going to pick out some nice mid bucktail stuff, which is usually a nice, it's got a bit of hollowness, but it's not as hollow as the bottom, so not a crazy amount of flaring. This actually looks a lot lighter once I get it off the bucktail. And this is already tapered really nicely, to be honest, so I won't have to do much with it. Probably should have set a camera up and pointed at my desk so you guys could have seen what I was doing, but I think you kind of get it. Alright, now I'm going to bring that back roughly to where the yellow is. Some people will tie shorter. I'm going to bring it back to roughly where that's at. And we're just kind of moving that fur around. Nice, so you'll see how that yellow just really nicely blends in with the green. And we're going to go with the white belly again. We're going to shorten this white fur up on the underside of this fly a little bit more this time. And just kind of hand stacking that fur. Again, you don't want it to be perfectly stacked. That should be about good there. These Predator X hooks from Partridge are really nice. Nice large gape. You can buy them smaller, but where these flies will likely be headed to, I think that the angler I know will appreciate having a nice wide gape. Now this here, I probably could have went shorter with that, but that's alright. We'll deal with it. Okay, I'm going to lock that in with some more glue. Hopefully that turns this fly into a multiple fish fly instead of a one fish fly. I'll wipe off that extra stuff there. Alright. Now, for our last layer of colors, we are going to go with a tan color on top of this. That'll just kind of, a little bit of contrast there, I guess, but not too far off from the white. And this nice crinkly bucktail, which will add some volume to this fly. Now, a lot of you probably looking at this fly and being, you know, it's pretty, doesn't really look like a minnow or a bait fish. These things really take their shape. I'm going to recut another piece, guys. These things really start taking on a really nice shape when you get them wet. And I'll show you an example of that at the end of the video of one that I tied earlier. Alright, I'm just kind of doing a little more hand stacking here. This is a great little pattern too if you're just kind of new to bucktail and wanting to learn how to use it, and maybe trying to understand why some bucktail is a lot better than others. It's a bit time consuming, but it's not a hard pattern to tie. And I'm just trying to clean up these cut ends here. They're extending a little bit too far past my hook eye. Not that the fish will ever care, but we all know who we're trying to impress. Alright, we're going to come under again with some white. We're going to go with a shorter piece of white, but fairly bulky. So we're going to look for a little bit of volume in this chunk we're dyeing in. So that's roughly what we're putting in there. And I am going to hand stack this a bit on the table. Kind of line it up nicely. Alright, flip our fly over. And that should be good right about there. That should work. Just kind of, I could have tied that in with some glue actually. I kind of slit my brain there. It's alright. When you're doing this, make sure you put glue on that last one. I'm just going to whip finish this off. First video of the fall season here, so I'm definitely a bit rusty, guys. Bear with me. Alright, so we have an ugly body, we have an ugly head. This is all going to get cleaned up. I'm going to show you. So I'm going to use that Gorilla Glue again. And I'm just going to come around that head. And we're going to try to accommodate some eyes on here too. But I just kind of want to give it a good little brush there first. And again, I'm just going to use a dubbing brush for that. And that's just kind of blending everything in. This thing looks totally different when it's wet. Alright. So, we're going to be using some silver eyes on this, I think. and they're just a generic brand of eyes. I'm just putting in some glue on both sides where I'm going to be placing the eyes. And this will be our first tacking point for these eyes, but we're going to, oh my, there we go. We are going to reinforce them. Okay, that's one. Come around the other side. I'm just going to press them a bit. This Gorilla Glue sets pretty fast actually, so I don't have to play around with this forever. Alright. Now, you can go a few different ways here. You can go with putting Gorilla Glue over top of this again, or go with some UV. I think we're going to go with some UV. Alright, so today we're going to be using Solaris Flex. The Flex is nice for this. It's pretty much actually the only thing I use to date Flex on is Predator patterns. And we're basically just going to try to reinforce that eye there a little bit. So we're going to come around over top of it and just kind of work that stuff around without making too much of a mess. But you want to come and extend over the eye as well. And that'll just protect it from getting peeled off on first bit of teeth that make their way underneath that eye. Trying to do this at an angle that you guys can see, but it isn't very optimal for me where I'm sitting. And just kind of working that stuff around. Alright, now I'm just spinning this around because I don't want that dripping or kind of building up anywhere. There we go. And we'll just do a quick turn just to make sure we kind of set in the layer a little bit of UV we got there, and then we can spend a little bit more time on it. And this Revolution vise is made for doing this kind of work. I actually have a UV cure on my desk that I can throw flies in, so I'll throw these in there for a few minutes as well. Alright, so that is a Buck Tail Deceiver. Awesome pattern for predator species. I was going to show you what these look like after they're wet, because this does not look like much of a bait fish pattern right now. So I'll just take this guy out, and I had one I tied up just earlier, and you can see how the shape of this changes after it's been wet and it dries. So when this actually gets wet, this all comes down, and it just really shows off as a nice fish looking pattern, and it's a proven pattern. So thank you guys very much for watching, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, always appreciate that, but don't feel like you need to. And until next time, have a great day.